Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Ben and Melanie Show, or Red State Blues. This is your host, Ben.
And I'm Melanie.
Yep, we're both here today. We're back for the first time in a few months. So it's been pretty much just one thing after another lately.
Yep.
As we all know this. To add to the confusion, I think that we're going to go ahead and change our name back to the Ben and Melanie Show right now because we want to talk about things other than just politics.
Yep.
And I think we're not alone in feeling like we're a little overly politicized out in a way.
Yep.
That is not. Not sustainable forever. Anyway, but we're still going to talk a lot about politics today. It's not like that's off the menu or something like that. But I think I'm just sick of the whole thing a little bit. Sick of the whole debate back and forth. It feels like no one will ever really win.
Yep.
In the end, it's all self-defeating nonsense for the most part anyway. But it is anyway. It's I think suffice it to say, I think we might change our name back to the original name of the show, if technically we can. But I don't know. Do you have anything to add to that, Melanie?
I think that our name currently is a little too spot on for how people are feeling right now.
Well, the reason we changed the name to Red State Blues to begin with was I felt like it was trying to combine the red and blue thing a little bit. I feel like you can have both things. You can have guns and you can have universal health insurance at the same time.
Yep.
And that's kind of why I like the name Red State Blues. But I feel like in some ways it's I think it just turns people off in a way too that I didn't really think about. Go ahead.
I think it also draws traffic that is negative.
Yeah, it draws negative comments and it draws traffic. We're probably getting a lot more hits.
Yeah.
People are listening to us and stuff like that, but it's not the people we want to listen to us.
We're not what they expect when they turn it on.
We're not what they're expecting, I think. Yeah, exactly. And it's just, so I think we might just change it back to our names, the Ben and Melanie Show, because I like that anyway.
And we get to talk about more things.
We just get to talk about whatever the heck we want.
Yeah.
I feel like the name of it kind of pens us in a little.
Yeah.
But, suffice it to say anyway, obviously, Trump, going back to the bigger story of the day, obviously Trump won the election. Let me see, it's towards the end of November right now, so we've had a little time to digest that.
Yep.
That was kind of a harsh loss. I think that a lot of people really were not expecting it in the same way that they were expecting, maybe 2016. A lot of people were calling that one he's going to win, and no, you're not planning on it.
Yep.
Some of these far left people like Michael Moore and stuff like that were saying that. But this time I didn't see that as much. Mm-hmm. I saw a lot of people really rooting for Kamala, and it just didn't never materialize, obviously.
Yep.
She never got that big support boost from the base, really, I don't think. And then she also was gunning to get a lot of centrists that ultimately didn't end up voting for her.
Yep.
And it just didn't work. But, she had to try. What you gonna do, though? That's all on that one.
I kind of mentioned it in our last episode, or the episode before the last one, about when they had Joe Biden drop out. Every single time in history when the person has dropped out that late in the game, that party doesn't win. And kind of knew that was going to happen because they just did not have enough time to pick a new candidate and actually run
really
them
make
properly.
them seem like a serious contender. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So I was not completely surprised.
I really am a big fan of hers. I mean, I really had hopes, but I personally think, obviously, I'm like the communist socialist here or whatever, but I'm like Bernie Sanders, I think that he's been talking a lot about how the Democratic Party needs to get back to its roots. It needs to really focus on the working class, focus on things that matter to the working class, not just like theoretical things or whatever. And I think he's right. Like things that matter to everyday people, not just college educated people that have like really well paying jobs or whatever. I don't know. And maybe she really appealed, obviously, to the college educated class, and that's the class that voted for her. But as it turns out, most people are not in that group. So it doesn't matter what all the college educated people want. You know, it matters what the majority of Americans want. So,
And the thing of it is I think a lot of the talking heads for the liberal talking heads don't even understand what it's like to live in the middle of the country. And we've mentioned this before. We're not a flyover state. Stop saying that.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why, the party lost.
That's why Biden did good. Because I think that he actually appealed to people.
Yep.
In a way where he's human. Like the point is like you got to be human. People want to vote for somebody who's human, and he seemed like he actually like came from like he was from this planet at least.
Yeah.
So like that's he really actually appealed to a lot of people. But not that she doesn't seem like that. She doesn't, but she doesn't seem like somebody who's, I guess, like super familiar, I think, to a lot of people in the middle of the country,
and
maybe.
The struggles
or, yeah, the struggles.
The middle country.
Yeah, the struggles that they have and things like that. Yeah.
All the doom after NAFTA.
Yeah.
Created all these empty small towns.
It's not that, she just didn't seem to be aware of it. And Donald Trump, that's to all his faults. He seems to really...
He's plugging into that.
He plugs right into it. He talks about what they want to hear.
Yep.
What they want to hear about that stuff, and that's the Democrats' fault. Actually, it's not her fault. It's the Democrats' fault. But, yeah, so it was a bitter, hard pill to swallow. But in a way, I don't think I'm really that surprised. I was expecting it to actually kind of go his way to like the last couple days before the election. And I'm like, maybe she could do this. Maybe she has a chance. I was reading. I obviously drank the Kool-Aid a couple days before the election. I'm like, yeah, you know what? She's really gonna do it. She's like, no. It's just not. Didn't even have a prayer apparently. So I know it is closer than what they said originally. It is only like 1.6%. I mean, it's not like he does not have some massive mandate like I'm sure he's thinking that he claims to have and everything like that. But it is really just a tiny amount of people. Not tiny amount, but percentage wise, tiny amount.
I think there were a lot of liberal white women that went in and voted for Trump in reaction to the Palestine-Israel thing, and then the rest of their ballot was Democratic.
That's something I don't understand.
You can tell this in the results. A lot of state things were passed, but their state went for Trump.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I think your average college-educated woman voted for Kamala. But I think you're right. You're probably right. That was one big issue for a lot of women and men too, obviously. And I don't know why. For some reason, a lot of apparently Muslims in Michigan voted for Trump thinking that like he was going to be better on the Palestine-Israel issue for them, which is plainly not the case. So I don't know how that I think that's like some sort of misinformation campaign actually at that point.
Yeah.
Like it's just like you're just obviously being lied to by social media sources that are not reputable or whatever. And it's just like, come on, you're just voting against your own interests here. I mean, at least the Democrats are willing to weigh both sides. I mean, on that particular issue, I mean, Jesus Christ, the Republicans are just good. They're going to come down hard on the side of Israel no matter what. Yep. So I don't know how that could even... Whatever though.
How that helped.
I don't know what people were thinking for that one, but anyway, yeah, we obviously all this has been talked about ad nauseum in the press and the media and everything like that. I think I feel like I'm ready to, for myself, like kind of like pick up the fight kind of elsewhere. Look at like poverty. Look at like fighting poverty. How we can address that. Like there has to be like bigger battles, you know what I mean? Maybe even outside of politics. I don't know, activism, or through politics, but maybe through activism and political activism possibly. But there's big battles that have to be fought on the ground for everybody having human rights anyway. So.
You can look local too. Try to enshrine those rights in your own states.
Yeah.
If you yeah, you should try to enshrine them in your state constitutions for human rights or healthcare rights or whatever else that you think that should be
yeah.
done.
I think you're right. I think like going through the state, looking at state governance is a way to do it. We have obviously been on about that. That was like the biggest thing of our time, in my lifetime. I think in some ways was the getting rid of gerrymandering in Michigan.
Yep.
That was the biggest. I mean, obviously, in Michigan, the Republicans won the House, and it's going to swing back and forth now. But
Yep.
at least it'll swing back and forth.
Yep.
Like it won't just be one party for 40 years, like it was.
Yep.
And with the Republicans basically control our entire lives, you know. So like now at least like the Democrats and Republicans have to compete against each other, and they actually have to like say things outside the box, and that's just the best thing you can do. And I wish every state would be able to do that. I know a lot of states probably are trying and have and everything like that. And the red versus blue divide is not as great in sometimes as people think.
Yep.
I was just watching a YouTube video about Alaska that popped up on my feed by a YouTube channel called a More Perfect Union, and it's about essentially union type issues a lot of the time. And they went to Alaska though, and I mean there's a lot of Alaskans that, I mean, Alaska votes Republican in every presidential race. I mean, they voted for Trump. It's like every single time they're going to vote for a Republican, but they also voted to increase their minimum wage to $15 an hour at the same time this election cycle in 2024 here. They voted for, oh gosh, I can't remember. There was multiple things. Reproductive freedom for women. You know what I mean? So at the same time as voting for Trump, they voted for these other things. I just think that's fascinating, actually. So like the divide is not as great as what people think. Everybody thinks. I think that people deserve a basic level of human rights and dignity and getting paid enough to live at their job. I don't think that that's really something that people would disagree about generally. I think maybe like the super wealthy elite people might disagree, but that's it.
The reason why Trump would have led in Alaska and a conservative will always win in Alaska is because Alaska drills for oil and
does a
profit sharing with their citizens.
They talked to some former union guy up there, whatever, who is a retired airline guy who was in a union, but he totally voted for Trump because he believes the Democrats are going to prevent them from bringing jobs to drill for oil. Essentially, that was all it was.
Yep.
And it's just like every time they just vote against the Democrats because they think the Democrats are preventing them from getting to exploiting their natural resources.
Yep.
Like they want to. And maybe they're right actually about that. I don't think they're not wrong. So like, I mean, obviously we the rest of the country sees Alaska as like some sort of national preserve in some ways, and Alaskans see it as like, this is our money. This is how we have to make our living. We have to cut down these forests and mine this stuff, gold, and take the oil out of this place to get money to survive, because they need jobs, right? So that's how they're looking at it. And for all of us vacationer type people, it's not the same thing. We just want to see the natural beauty of it. I don't know. So I could see there's always going to be a struggle there, but that's how that divide has fallen along party lines. But they're still voting for a lot of practically socialist policies in some ways. I mean, they essentially get $1,700 a year for the oil revenue. They said too. Like, I've known about that forever. I mean, the Alaskans get a certain amount of money, but it's like that's practically a socialist program. You're taking money and redistributing it. Like, anyway, that's cool. I think that's kind of hilarious in a way. But anyway, what else do you have to add? Sorry there.
I just think that right now, this is my feeling, and I've been saying this since the election results came in, is that the train has left the station. You need to focus on state and local issues. So I think that we can still make change. I think we can still build community. We can help with poverty in our own communities by helping each other. I still think that we need to speak out for a basic minimum income, because if we had a basic minimum income, we wouldn't have to worry about AI taking all of our jobs away, which is going to hurt white collar jobs as well. I mean, in the future here. So
in reality, they need to actually be considering some major changes to how we do things, because eventually there won't be jobs, essentially, for humans. For most jobs, at least. So it's like, what are we gonna do? Like, we're gonna have to like become artists and create things or something like that. But we're gonna have to get paid. We're gonna have to survive. They're gonna have to redo our society, really. But in the meantime, a universal basic income will at least cover some of that as many jobs start to disappear. I think you're right.
Yep.
Especially a lot of jobs that I think people think will never disappear. Like computer programming and stuff like that. They're like really good, high paying jobs. I mean, those are going to be the first ones to go.
Yep.
And then not to mention there's freaking, physical labor jobs would be like next, like as soon as they can figure out how to get humanoid robots to actually function correctly, like that'll be done. And they're spending all the resources trying to do that right now, and it's just a matter of time. It's not our generation that really has to worry as much, though. It's going to be the kids' generation. The next 2 or 3 generations down the road here, they're going to be just screwed.
Yep.
So,
it makes it hard to parent because you don't know what to focus on, kind of like.
Yeah.
Which skills do I need to highlight to my children? I'm not sure because I don't know what the future
you
holds.
Can't really plan for anything, and that's the same true when was true when we were growing up. They were like, oh, teaching everybody to do this or that, become engineers, become this and that, and then like obviously there's like not a need for whatever it is as much when they think no one can predict 20 years down the road, but it's just. The world's going through a lot of mind-boggling changes. I highly recommend to listen to or watch the Vlog Brothers on YouTube. And Hank Green posted a really long YouTube video. Normally they post very short ones. But Hank Green posted a half an hour long one. All basically about the massive changes in our society that are happening. And the history of populism and how those are related, and how we have populism now, and how populism isn't really a political ideology. It's like a thing that'll happen when there's new forms of communication that happen. And he really he talked a lot about radio, and how even though radio is like the most boring thing ever to us now, back when it came out, it was like amazing, and when everybody could afford it by the 1930s, like everybody had one in their house. And they suddenly, like, these massive ideologues, like, came to power because they could, for the first time in human history, like, one person could, like, speak to millions of people at once. Like, that never could happen before. And that led to the rise of populists then, for good or for bad, I suppose. But Father Coughlin was one of them in the United States, and he had, like, I want to say, like, 25% of the country listened to him all at once, pretty much, onto his radio broadcasts. And he was incredibly conservative, ridiculously so, and anti-Semitic at the same time, which is great. But no, wonderful guy. But no, I should not go better. No, maybe he didn't know better, but he really riled people up back then. And which, by the way, that made me think of the HBO show Carnival, if you've ever seen that.
Yeah,
I actually think that's what the show was a little bit about.
Yeah.
And I never knew that there was anything really like that back then that happened. But there was a priest in that show who was
just like that.
Literally evil.
Yep.
And like he, but then he got on the radio. As I remember, but the show unfortunately got canceled after 2 seasons, so it never took it as far, I think, as what they were planning on going. Anyway, Father Coughlin in the United States, and obviously it led to the rise of Adolf Hitler in Europe, and that sort of ideology there. It led to a lot of big, huge changes in nation states. Obviously, it led to some good, though. FDR gave fireside chats and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, the thing can be used for good. But radio itself is actually, I guess Hank Green was saying that that's actually not as big of a change as what we're seeing now. That was a big change, but still, even radio stations, you have to be like either really rich or an institution has to like own a radio station, and there's spectrums, and only certain amounts of the parts of the spectrums, can be owned by certain people, and there's only so much to go around. The government has to like divvy it up. Anyway, so like now everybody has a voice though, so it's even bigger than that, much bigger. And the only thing that's really comparable, he said, was really the only comparable thing would be like the invention of the printing press, would be the only thing that's even remotely comparable to where we're at currently, for a variety of reasons. And that's I won't get into the whole thing anyway, but it's pretty. We live in an insane time, and we should realize that it's populism. It's like a natural result of all these communication changes that we're experiencing. Like populists are gonna use that, and they're gonna use it and be reckless with it. In fact, and they don't care who they hurt. They don't care who gets hurt, and they're gonna scream their messages across the entire spectrum of everything. And yeah, and that always happens. That always happens with a new technology, a new communications tool gets invented. Apparently, it definitely happened in the 1500s too. So, late 1400s, early 1500s, with that invention of the printing press, obviously it led to Lutheranism and 200 years of war in Europe. So, yeah, I hope it doesn't get like that for us. So, I think that's what Hank Green was kind of saying. Like, hopefully, if we're lucky, we can fast forward through all our huge, massive political changes that are probably going to be a result of all the technology we have now, and maybe get to the end of it and actually have like some sort of normalcy again someday, or at least, not insanity. But what do you think?
I hope.
I don't know. I could go on all day about it. Anyway, Hank Green's a genius. So, good guy. You should definitely watch his YouTube videos. But
And talking about the changes that could possibly come up, I would just like to say that make sure you're being a good ally to people, the minority groups, women, LGBTQIA people, black and brown people, everybody.
There's a lot of people out there
rich.
freaking out right now, and I don't think that like the media is doing anybody any services by pretending that it's not happening and ignoring it and trying to just be like, oh, nothing will happen. It's just like, fuck, you don't know if anything's gonna happen.
Right.
No one fucking knows. You can't read the future, okay? Mm-hmm. He said he's gonna do some crazy ass shit.
Yep.
And just because you think it's not going to happen doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
Right.
So, like, and it's just like, okay, you don't fucking have control over that. People don't.
While you still have a voice, you need to actually shout out to Washington that you want our Constitution to stay like it is, that you want the First Amendment rights, that you want freedom of the press, all of those things, because if you don't speak now, they'll think that they have a mandate to take it away. So you need to be loud.
And I understand that it's like very, very unlikely that anything like that's going to happen. Probably unlikely. So I understand that's like the media's response is very lukewarm, milk toast, very blah. Oh yeah, we've been down this road before. Trump says a bunch of shit and it doesn't actually happen. But just everybody just needs to be aware and alert, and everybody needs to be willing to go to bat for everybody else.
Yep.
Because next thing you know, they're going to be rounding up your friends or neighbors, and what the hell are you going to do? You're just going to take it, like this has happened before. So, and we don't want this to ever happen again, and you can't just... People laying down or being afraid and hiding in their little, like, hidey holes is not the answer in these cases. But anyway, I don't know what else to say about that other than that, really, as far as, it doesn't actually. That's the thing. I'm actually lucky. You know what I mean? Like I look at it like this. I'm like a cisgendered, male, person, and I'm just lucky. Like I'm not even a target. Just by simply having this podcast, I'm actually making myself a target. But I mean, like I'm not actually I'm not a targeted minority though. But there are many, many, many others who are. So it's like we need to have a lot of like, empathy. I guess that's the word, empathy, and actually courage, right? So
yes, and understanding that they may not be coming for you now, but they are coming.
Well, just because they're coming for somebody else
doesn't mean
they're not coming for you later. Yeah.
I think there was a writing about that after World War II. It's true.
Yes.
And the only way to fight it is, use your First Amendment rights.
Yeah, use your First Amendment. We have a First Amendment here.
Within the law.
That's the key. And that's what we believe in. And I believe everybody
the rule of law in
our
legislature, you can use that and write letters that you need to write to make sure that the laws stay in place that you believe should be there.
Yep.
So the loudest person wins. A squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So
yeah, I think that's kind of how I feel right now too. Like I just feel like we're on the cusp of things getting worse for quite a while. Honestly, if things don't get bad, that'd be great, and maybe things will be hunky-dory. But I just feel like things economically are going to get significantly worse. If that's all it is, I think we'll be lucky. I hope it's just economically and not in many other ways.
Yep.
But I think their policies are very likely to just put us right into a recession.
Yep.
Pretty quickly. Which Elon Musk has actually said he's wanted. So I don't really...
I don't understand why.
He just thinks like we need to like cut the... Like it's almost like you want to it's everything's over bloated and we need to like lower it down. And then, of course, from his perspective, he's so rich that he could just pick up some good deals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If everything hits the fan and shit like the depression happens, well, he can go pick up property cheap. He can go pick up stocks cheap. He can go buy everything on the cheap, you know what I mean? And then he can be super, super, super rich after things come back.
Yep.
So that's how he's thinking like a capitalist. He's not thinking like where is he going to find his next meal, you know, or who's he going to barter with for food, you know, like he's not thinking about stuff like that. So anyway,
that's something I would recommend too, is learn your grandmother's skills. All of, when I was younger, my grandmother told me about depression a lot, and she knew a lot of how to prepare food and get the most out of your chicken, like use it for 4 different days and 4 different things, make soup out of the bones. I mean, if the economy does crash, like they say, you're going to need to know how to do the stretching of things. So I would definitely learn those skills.
Yeah.
I think they're important. I don't know. I sound all doom and gloom, and I don't mean to sound that way.
Yeah, it's a pretty depressing podcast.
But I'm just like, I want people to realize.
I know.
Even just shut the news off for 5 seconds. And
No. Why? I don't think people should shut the news off.
Just listen to me. For 5 minutes. Turn off everything. Lay your phone down. Go outside. Touch the earth. Then this is the real. This is right now. Take a deep breath. And then roll your sleeves up and get ready to get to work, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take the people. We are the boss. We can't forget that. We're the boss in this country. The people are the boss, not the people we elect. They are our employees, and we need to remember that. So we need to let them know what they need to do. So I think that we need to roll up our sleeves, and even in our own communities, man, we're going to need to start, extra food banks and all kinds of stuff if the economy
Actually,
goes.
I think that's the
Community
key.
gardens.
Like if we hit recession or even depression, we need to really, really try to help each other out. That's kind of like also the key. I mean, whatever happens, we have to have each other's backs.
Don't be the guy that hoards the toilet paper. Like there were guys that were hoarding the toilet paper during the pandemic.
Right? Like
be the person that shares.
Yeah. Yep, be the person that shares. And or be a helper. I think it's Mr. Rogers said it, look for the helpers,
Yep.
like that's a good way to be, and that's like be a helper. So
be a helper, be kind. Remember kindness. Remember everyone has the same feelings you do. They all want their family to be safe. They want good jobs. They want food on their plate, and they want to be happy.
Mm-hmm. They do.
It doesn't matter what strain of politics you are.
Yeah. Well, that being said, do you have anything else to add today, or do you want to keep talking about anything, or was that pretty much? We're just gonna do an update, because we're just saying that hey, we're alive, and we haven't done a podcast since August, so yeah.
We have a lot going on.
Obviously, yeah. I guess who doesn't?
Yeah.
But it's true, we do have a lot going on. So
I mean, yeah, people think
Kids.
that we were pretty busy. Kids, parents.
Yep.
Community.
Yep. So, yeah. Anyway, we will continue doing podcasts hopefully here, though. I feel like maybe there's a greater need to do podcasts in this era that we're entering here. That sometimes it's maybe not as important, and sometimes it's more important actually that other voices get heard. Different perspectives get out there, And I know, like, there's not tons of people who listen to this necessarily, but I just kind of consider it like a butterfly effect. You know, like, hey, you know, maybe if one person hears it, you know, they'll mention a book or a podcast or something to somebody else, and you know, like it just gets information out there into the the zeitgeist. Yeah, exactly.
Just a reminder, I would pay attention to Substack writer Heather Cox Richardson. She writes a letter to America every day.
Definitely.
I would also recommend, if you want to know what's going on in the Supreme Court, and to understand what kind of bills or cases are going up there that affect our rights, you want to listen to Strict Scrutiny podcast. They're constitutional lawyers. They explain everything very well. The other thing I was going to say is keep making art, keep writing the stories, make the films, because that controls the narrative. And when you control the narrative, you can change the world.
Mm-hmm.
So keep it kind, keep it positive, and keep it being a help to others, like Mr. Rogers said.
All right. That was awesome. Well, with that then, I guess we're going to say goodbye. So, bumpy...
Go out, men.
Motherfuckers.